Jake Morrison had been working the overnight shift at the McDonald's on Arden Way in Sacramento for 3 months when the strange orders started coming in. It was always the same time, 3:17 a.m., and always through the drive-through speaker, even though the restaurant was supposed to be closed to customers. The first time it happened, Jake was mopping the lobby floor when the familiar electronic chime echoed through the empty restaurant. He froze, mop in hand, staring at the drive-through speaker system that shouldn't have been active. "Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you?" came a voice, but it wasn't his voice. It was distorted, like someone speaking through water with an accent he couldn't place. Jake rushed to the counter and grabbed the headset. "Hello? We're closed." Silence. He checked the drive-through cameras on the monitor. The lane was completely empty, bathed in the sickly yellow glow of the sodium lights. But the order screen was active, text appearing line by line. 1 Big Mac, no pickles. 1 large freeze. 1 chocolate shake. Total, $12.47. Jake's hands trembled as he canceled the order. He'd worked fast food long enough to know that sometimes the systems glitched, but this felt different. The way the order appeared wasn't like a system error. It was deliberate, methodical. The next night, same time. 3:17 a.m. The chime, the voice, the same exact order. This time, Jake didn't even bother with the headset. He just watched the order populate on the screen, letter by letter, as if invisible fingers were typing. By the 4th night, Jake was ready. He had his phone recording, pointed at the order screen. When 3:17 came, he watched the familiar sequence begin, but this time something was different. After the order appeared, new text started scrolling. "Make the order, Jake." His blood ran cold. How did it know his name? He looked around the empty restaurant, checking every corner, every booth. The security camera showed nothing unusual, just him standing alone behind the counter. "Make the order, or I'll come inside." Against every instinct screaming at him to leave, Jake found himself walking to the grill. His hands moved on their own, dropping the quarter-pound patty onto the hot surface. The meat sizzled, filling the air with the familiar smell, but something was wrong. The patty was turning black, not from overcooking, but from something else. Something that looked like rot spreading across the surface. The French fry timer dinged, though he hadn't started any fries. Jake turned to see the fry station running on its own, the basket lowering into oil that had turned thick and dark. The sound it made wasn't the usual bubbling. It was like whispers, dozens of voices talking at once, too quiet to understand but loud enough to make his skin crawl. The shake machine gurgled to life next. Chocolate syrup poured into a cup, but the liquid coming out wasn't brown. It was deep red, almost black, with the consistency of blood. Steam rose from the cup, carrying a metallic smell that made Jake gag. When he turned back to the grill, the burger was assembled. The bun was moldy, the lettuce was brown and slimy, and the meat was moving. Slight twitches, like something was alive inside it. The order screen updated. Order ready, customer waiting. Jake's legs felt like lead as he walked to the drive-through window. He didn't want to look, but he couldn't stop himself. The window slid open with a mechanical whir, and there, sitting in a car that definitely hadn't been there moments before, was a figure. It looked like a person at first glance, but the proportions were all wrong. The arms were too long, stretching across the car to reach the window. The face was pale, almost translucent, with dark circles where the eyes should be. And the mouth. The mouth was stretched into an impossible smile, showing too many teeth. "Thank you for the meal, Jake," it said, and its voice was the same distorted sound that had been coming through the speaker. "Same time tomorrow?" Jake shoved the bag through the window and slammed it shut. When he looked again, the car was gone. The drive-through lane was empty. He quit the next morning, but sometimes, late at night when he's driving past that McDonald's, he can see the lights on in the back. And if he listens carefully, he can hear the fry timer dinging over and over again, like a countdown to something terrible. The restaurant was eventually torn down after several more overnight workers reported similar experiences. But locals say that sometimes at 3:17 a.m. you can still see the golden arches glowing in the empty lot, and if you're foolish enough to drive through, something will always be there to take your order. The McDonald's on East Colfax Avenue in Denver was busy on that Friday night, but nothing that the crew couldn't handle. Jennifer Walsh was working the drive-through, taking orders with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd been doing it for 2 years. The line was long, but moving steadily, typical for a weekend evening. At 11:43 p.m., a white sedan pulled up to the ordering speaker. Jennifer put on her headset smile and pressed the button. "Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you tonight?" "Yeah, I need a Big Mac meal, large, with a Coke," came a man's voice. Normal enough, though something about the tone made Jennifer uncomfortable. It was flat, emotionless, like he was reading from a script. "Anything else for you tonight?" "And the 6-piece nugget meal, medium, with a Sprite." Jennifer entered the order. "Okay, that'll be $16.89. Please drive around to the first window." But the car didn't move. It just sat there, engine running. "Sir, you can drive around to the first window now." "And a quarter-pounder meal, large, with an orange drink." Jennifer frowned. "I'm sorry, did you want to add that to your order?" "And a fish sandwich meal, medium, with a coffee." The order screen was getting crowded. Jennifer tried to keep up, adding items as the voice continued to list them in that same flat, mechanical tone. Big Mac, nuggets, quarter pounder, fish sandwich, apple pies, cookies, more nuggets, another Big Mac. "Sir, this is getting to be a pretty large order. Are you sure you need all of this?" The voice continued without acknowledging her question. "And a Happy Meal with apple slices and milk, and a McChicken meal, large, with a Diet Coke, and a double cheeseburger meal." The total was climbing rapidly. $47.23, $63.15, $89.47. The order screen was scrolling now, too many items to fit on one display. Jennifer looked at her manager, Kevin Santos, who was working the grill. "Hey Kevin, I've got a weird situation here. This guy just keeps ordering." Kevin glanced over at the drive-through monitor, showing the white sedan still parked at the speaker. "How much is his total?" "Over $100 now, and he's still going." The voice in Jennifer's headset hadn't stopped. "And a Big Mac meal, large, with a Coke. And a 6-piece nugget meal, medium, with a Sprite. And a quarter-pounder meal, large, with an orange drink." Jennifer's stomach dropped. Those were the exact same items he'd started with, word for word in the same order. "Sir, I think you're repeating yourself. You already ordered those items." But the voice continued, cycling through the same sequence of meals. Jennifer watched in growing horror as the order screen began showing duplicate items, then triplicate, then more. The same meals over and over, the total climbing past $200, then $300. "Kevin, you need to see this," Jennifer called out, her voice shaking. Kevin came over and put on a second headset. They both listened as the voice continued its endless loop of orders. The same inflection, the same pauses, the same specific requests: large fries, medium nuggets, orange drink, Diet Coke. Perfect repetition. "Sir, this is the manager," Kevin said, interrupting the cycle. "I need you to confirm your order, please." The voice stopped. For a moment, there was only the sound of the car's engine idling. Then, "And a Big Mac meal, large, with a Coke." Starting the cycle again. Kevin looked at the drive-through camera monitor. The white sedan was still there, but something was wrong with the image. It was flickering like a bad TV signal. Sometimes the car looked solid and normal. Other times it appeared translucent, as if he could see through it to the empty pavement behind. "I'm going outside," Kevin said. "Don't." Jennifer grabbed his arm. "Something's really wrong here." The order total had passed $500. The receipt printer was running continuously, spitting out foot after foot of paper listing the same meals repeated dozens of times. The sound was deafening in the quiet restaurant, a constant mechanical chattering. Other customers in the drive-through line behind the white sedan were getting impatient. One pulled around to the front window, rolling down their window to shout at Kevin. "What's the holdup? There's a car just sitting there not moving." Kevin looked at the customer, confused. "You can see the white sedan." "What white sedan?" "There's nobody there. The lane's empty. But something's blocking us from moving forward." Kevin's blood ran cold. He looked back at the monitor. The white sedan was clearly visible on the camera, but the customer couldn't see it. He ran outside to the drive-through lane. The ordering area was empty. No car, no customer, just the empty lane under the bright menu lights. But the voice in the headsets was still going, still ordering, and the receipt printer was still running. Jennifer followed him outside, headset still on. "And a 6-piece nugget meal, medium, with a Sprite," the voice continued in her ear. She looked at the empty lane, then at Kevin. "There's no one here," she whispered. They went back inside, but the voice continued for another hour. The order total eventually reached $847.32 before it stopped, mid-sentence at exactly 1 a.m. The sudden silence was almost worse than the endless ordering. The receipt was over 8 feet long when they finally tore it off the printer. Jennifer counted the items. It was the same 6 meals repeated 127 times in perfect sequence. The next morning, Kevin reported the incident to his district manager, who dismissed it as a prank or system glitch. But it happened again the following Friday night. Same time, same voice, same car that only some people could see, same endless order. It's been happening every Friday night for months now. The staff has learned to just let it run its course, turning down the headset volume and waiting for 1 a.m. when it stops. They stopped printing the receipts. The paper costs were getting ridiculous. But Jennifer still works there, and she swears that sometimes when she's taking a normal order from a real customer, she can hear that flat, mechanical voice underneath, still ordering. Still trapped in its endless loop of Big Macs and nuggets and orange drinks, cycling through the same meal requests for eternity. The worst part? Sometimes, late at night when the restaurant is quiet, she hears her own voice mixed in with the phantom ordering. Her responses from that first night, playing back in perfect detail. "Welcome to McDonald's. How can I help you tonight?" As if she's becoming part of the loop too. The McDonald's on Blackstone Avenue in Fresno had always been a 24-hour location, but lately it felt like the kitchen was working shifts that no human had scheduled. Mike Rodriguez, the general manager, first noticed it during his weekly inventory checks. Food supplies were disappearing at an alarming rate, but the sales numbers didn't match the missing inventory. "We're going through twice as much ground beef as we're selling," Mike told his assistant manager, Lisa Parker, as they stood in the walk-in cooler. "Same with the buns, cheese, everything. It doesn't make sense." Lisa checked her clipboard again. "Maybe someone's not ringing up orders properly, or we've got theft. I've checked the cameras, the register logs, everything. All our sales are accounted for. But look at this." Mike pointed to the nearly empty shelves that should have been stocked for the weekend rush. "We got our delivery yesterday. This should last us 3 days." That night, Mike decided to stay late and watch the restaurant after closing. He positioned himself in the office with a clear view of the kitchen through the security monitors. The last customer left at 2:17 a.m., and Mike settled in to wait. At first, everything was normal. The overnight crew cleaned their stations, restocked for the morning shift, and settled into the quiet routine of a closed restaurant. But at 3:30 a.m., something changed. The fryer alarm started going off, not just one or two, but all of them, in sequence. Mike watched Carlos, the overnight cook, rush to check them, but the fryers were empty. No fries, no nuggets, nothing cooking. Carlos reset the alarms and went back to his cleaning. 10 minutes later, it happened again. This time, Mike could see something on the security feed that made his stomach drop. While Carlos was bent over the fryer, checking the controls, there were shapes moving in the background. Shadowy figures working at stations that should have been empty. Mike blinked hard and looked again. The figures were gone, but the grill was firing up on its own. Flames licked up around invisible patties, and Mike could swear he heard the sizzle through the office speakers, even though no one was cooking anything. He grabbed his keys and headed for the kitchen. "Carlos, everything okay out here?" Carlos looked up from the fryer, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool temperature. "I don't know, boss. The equipment keeps turning on by itself. And..." He paused, looking embarrassed. "This is going to sound crazy, but I keep hearing cooking sounds, like someone's working the grill, but there's nobody there." As if on cue, the sound of meat hitting hot steel echoed through the kitchen. Both men looked at the grill, which was clearly empty, but the sound continued, patties being flipped, onions sizzling, the scrape of a spatula against a cooking surface. "Jesus," Mike whispered. "How long has this been going on?" "About a week now." "I thought I was just tired, working too many doubles. But it's getting worse." The timer for the fry station dinged. Carlos walked over and found the basket full of perfectly cooked fries, golden brown and steaming hot. The oil temperature gauge showed it had been cooking for exactly 4 minutes. "I didn't put these in," Carlos said, his voice shaking. "I swear to you, Mike, I didn't put anything in the fryer." Mike stared at the fries. They looked normal, smelled normal, but something about them made his skin crawl. "Throw them away." "But they're perfectly good." "Throw them away, now." Carlos dumped the fries in the trash, but within minutes, the fry alarm dinged again. Another basket of fries cooked to perfection. This pattern continued all night, invisible hands cooking invisible food, producing very real results. By morning, they'd thrown away enough food to feed 50 customers. Burgers appeared on the grill, fully dressed and wrapped. Nuggets materialized in the fryer. Apple pies emerged from the oven, golden brown and steaming. Mike called in sick and went home, but he couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. That evening, he installed his own security cameras, hidden ones that the overnight crew didn't know about. He wanted better angles, clearer footage. What he captured on film made him question his sanity. The hidden cameras showed the kitchen in stark detail. At 3:30 a.m., just like the night before, the ghostly activity began. But this time, Mike could see them clearly, translucent figures in McDonald's uniforms working with mechanical precision. They moved like they were still alive, going through the motions of their shifts, but their faces were wrong. Blank, emotionless, with eyes that reflected the kitchen lights like mirrors. One figure worked the grill, flipping patties in perfect rhythm. Another ran the fryer, dropping baskets with practiced timing. A third assembled burgers with the speed and efficiency of someone who'd been doing it for years. Mike recognized them. The woman at the fryer was Betty Morrison, who died of a heart attack in the restaurant's break room 3 years ago. The man on the grill was Danny Chen, killed in a car accident on his way to work 2 years back. The person assembling burgers was Maria Santos, who'd collapsed during a busy lunch rush and never woke up. They were all former employees, all people who'd died while still working at the restaurant. And they were still working, night after night, cooking food that no living person had ordered. The most disturbing part was their efficiency. They moved without wasted motion, without the small talk and breaks that living workers needed. They were perfect employees, tireless and dedicated, serving customers who would never come. Mike watched the footage dozens of times, looking for some explanation, some trick of light or shadow. But there was no denying what he saw. The restaurant was operating 2 shifts, one for the living and one for the dead. The ghost shift explained everything. The missing inventory, the equipment running itself, even some of the customer complaints about food tasting off. The dead employees were cooking with the same ingredients as the living staff, but something fundamental was wrong with food prepared by hands that should have been still. Mike tried to have the restaurant blessed, but it didn't help. He tried closing early, changing the overnight schedule, even relocating the overnight crew to different stations. Nothing stopped the ghost shift. Eventually, he stopped trying to fight it. The restaurant was profitable, even with the extra food costs. The health department never found any violations. And honestly, the ghost crew's work was impeccable. No burnt food, no undercooked meat, perfect presentation every time. But Mike never worked nights again. He couldn't handle watching his former employees continue their eternal shifts, cooking for customers who existed only in their memories of busier times. The overnight crew has learned to work around their invisible colleagues. They leave certain stations alone after 3:30 a.m., letting the ghosts do their work in peace. Sometimes, in the morning, they find perfectly prepared food waiting for them, the ghost shift's contribution to the day's service. And if you ever find yourself at that McDonald's late at night, and your order comes out a little too perfect, a little too fast, just remember that some employees never really clock out. They just keep working, serving customers from beyond the grave, making sure that the golden arches never sleep.